Also auch die jungen Unternehmer denken zumindest teilweise schon an die Zukunft. Und ich habe mir eben gedacht, man merkt ja selber, dass man alt wird, wenn am letzten Nachmittag des Swiss Economic Forums alle auf der Bühne, aber wirklich alle auf der Bühne um einiges jünger sind als man selber. Und damit ist sogar noch ein früherer österreichischer Bundeskanzler mit gemeint. Ich hoffe trotzdem, ich bringe diesen Nachmittag noch ohne Altersschwäche über die Bühne. Aber Sie merken bereits, die Jugend, die steht bei uns heute Nachmittag im Fokus. Und wenn wir von Reaching Out sprechen und von Brückenbauen sprechen, dann dürfen, müssen und können wir die Jugend nicht vergessen. Gerade wenn es um Themen geht, die der Jugend sehr am Herzen liegen. Sie kennen das wahrscheinlich auch von zu Hause. Sie wissen auch, wie die Jugend reagieren kann, wenn wir zum Beispiel kein Gehör haben für Themen wie den Klimawandel oder Global Warming. Dieses Bild ist gestern entstanden, hat natürlich nichts mit dem Klimawandel zu tun, aber die Queen und ihr Urenkel Louis während der Feierlichkeiten zum 70-jährigen Thronjubiläum der Queen. Viele Junge fühlen sich vielleicht heutzutage so, dass sie sagen, ich will etwas verändern, ich will, dass ihr mir zuhört, aber niemand hört mir zu und irgendwie geht alles weiter wie bisher. Dann gibt es Junge, die eine gewisse Frust, die sie verspüren, in Taten umsetzen und in Aktionen umsetzen. Und unser nächster Gast ist eine junge Frau, die genau das getan hat. Es gibt einen Spruch von Gandhi, be the change you want to see in the world. Und Melati Wijsen, die wir jetzt dann gleich bei uns begrüßen werden, hat sich diesen Spruch zu Herzen genommen und sie hat etwas gemacht, das außerordentlich ist. Sie ist aufgewachsen in Bali und sie hat vieles gestört, was klimamäßig dort zu sehen ist. Zum Beispiel am Strand. Man sieht dort ganz viele Plastiksäcke. Da hat sie sich entschieden, zusammen mit ihrer Schwester Isabel, da tun wir was dagegen. Und was sie genau getan hat und was das für weltweite Auswirkungen hat und wie sich diese junge Frau noch immer einsetzt, dass diese Welt ein bisschen besser wird, davon wollen wir jetzt ein bisschen hören. Wir sind sehr froh, ist sie hier. Welcome, Melati Wijsen. Please have a seat. Melati, it's so good to see you.
Good to be here. I can't really see all of you, but I was in
they're all here. They're all here and they're all listening. I've had the pleasure to meet you occasionally from time to time throughout the years. It's hard to believe, but you've been around for about 10 years. You started all this when you were 12 or so. For all those who don't know about Bye Bye Plastic Bag, can you just give us a quick recap of what you did back then and what the general idea was?
For sure. It's my favorite story to tell because every day I have to think back and thank 12-year-old Melati for being brave enough to take the first step. So, growing up on the island of Bali, some of you may think Bali, the beautiful, picture-perfect island. We have the rice fields, the rivers, the ocean, the beaches, yes. But we also had a different reality growing up. Plastic pollution, as we were growing older, the problem grew bigger. And so at the age of 10 and 12 years old, together with my younger sister, we thought, enough, what are we going to do about it? We didn't want to wait until we were older or graduated high school to start taking action. And it wasn't really rocket science. So without a business plan, I know, and without a strategy, and definitely very little budget, and none at all, we started our first organization called Bye Bye Plastic Bags with the vision and mission of making our island home of Bali plastic bag free.
And we're talking about two young girls together with friends.
Yeah.
And you achieved a ban.
Not just us, though. It was a lot of people on the island of Bali, a lot of different organizations, and I think also it was at the right time that we started in 2013. People around the island just knew that we needed to change. And so it was the momentum, the building, but yes, finally in 2019, Bali did implement the ban on single-use plastic bags, straws, and styrofoam.
Well done. Due to your work and your devotion, and we know it. I've got kids, a lot of people here got kids as well. They all want to do something good. They all want to achieve a change. what pushed you to actually achieve the goal? You know, there's a big difference between wanting and doing. Is it kind of an intrinsic way of this has to be done, as we know it with Greta Thunberg, for example, or is it something else?
Well, I think there are many more young people than there were maybe 10 years ago. You know, when I started at 12 years old, it did not feel like there was this youth movement to lean on. But today, almost every single young person that I speak to has an idea, has this urge to create change. Now, I want everybody as well to think of someone in your life. Could be your kids, could be a neighbor's kids that you know of, or someone that you read about in a recent article. Young people today are getting involved at a younger and younger age because today we live in a time where we have access to the information and to the science that we know we have to change.
Information-wise, is it easier? Well, I guess it is. I know the answer to the question, but how easy is it to get connected as well? If you think about 20, 30, 40 years ago, you wouldn't have known that there are other young people in different continents or in different countries who actually feel exactly the same as you do.
Yeah, I think that's also the beauty of the time that we're living in today. The world, for Gen Z at least, feels a lot smaller because with one click of a button, we're connected with each other all around the world. In fact, I know, today I'm here, but at the same time, there's a lot of youth activists at Stockholm 50, the conference that also Christina Figueres mentioned. All around the world in different conferences, young people are present, and we're sharing and exchanging live the different information, the different messages, but at the core, it's always persistent about leading by example and being brave enough to start today with action.
What would you call yourself? Are you an activist? Are you a fighter? Are you a mediator between generations altogether?
I mean, so when I started at 12 years old, I had never heard of the word changemaker or activist. Today, I introduce myself like, hello, my name is Melati, and I am a full-time changemaker. This is how I, especially when I graduated high school, I feel that that's now the role that I play. I also do feel a responsibility having these invitations to be on platforms like this to connect what is happening within the four walls of a conference into the daily life and make sure that it's really being implemented. The goals that are shared on stage and the headlines that are making it onto the press, how do we connect the dots so it changes everyday life? That's the role that I feel I play, but many of us young people are doing on a constant daily basis.
And in that role, and I think it's worth mentioning, however, that, that was 10 years ago. So now you're 22.
21.
21 still. Sorry for getting that 1 year wrong. You're 21. Do you feel more heard? Do you feel more accepted? I can imagine as a 12-year-old, people kind of said, yeah, that will change, young people. How do you feel now?
Actually, the reaction when we would enter into a room, you can imagine two little girls and a bunch of friends. Aw, so cute, so inspiring. And to some extent, maybe I'm losing a little bit of that magic and that cuteness, but anyways, that wasn't really what we were going for in the first place. So what I've had to do is really walk the walk or walk the talk and be persistent, show up, never give up. And yeah, 10 years is a long time. It does feel like a lot of my life has been dedicated to being a lot older, a lot faster. But I hope I'm able to stand in front of an audience and feel that I'm getting a message across, where CEOs, general managers, politicians, teachers, and other young people can leave the room and say, you know what? If this young 21-year-old can, so can I.
Speaking of those decision makers, I've talked to Luisa Neubauer, for example, who's a German climate activist. I know that Greta Thunberg talks about this quite a lot as well. When you talk to politicians, of course they will react as you just described. Oh, how nice and how cute, and of course there's an issue, of course there's a problem. Fantastic that you want to do something about it. But there's a big risk of just listening to you, nodding, maybe also profiting from you, so kind of in a greenwashing way. How do you, or what do you do to prevent that risk, or how do you fight against it?
Thank you for bringing this up, actually, because in my recent TED Talk, I talk about the new greenwashing, which is
it's a huge issue, right?
It's youth washing. It's where instead of actually creating this meaningful engagement with young people, we're doing exactly that, inviting young people to be part of the agenda because we know we need it. We know that we cannot ignore to them. But after the standing ovation and photo opportunity,
and
thank
what
you
now?
For being an inspiration. And what do we do to prevent that? So at the new company that I started with Youthtopia, which we can talk about, but for now on this question, we've built a program for companies to learn exactly how to do so in an engaging and meaningful way with Gen Z. So we have a 5-step program all about, analyzing, onboarding a youth council, having that integration and connection with the youth of the employees of the company on all sorts of different things. Because again, I think young people, what's maybe important to say is that we don't necessarily need another panel discussion or another feature on Time magazine, and certainly no more IG Lives. But what we do need is that longer-term commitment from the corporate world, from the political world. And I think that that's more where we're interested in to contribute to that long-term change. So this program dives deeper on building the bridges between the companies and the youth.
I want to include questions from the audience. And the first one is a critical one. Are you ready for it? How about the gap between, you do a lot of good, you're trying to do something against climate change. On the other hand, you're traveling around the world, you're visiting conferences like this one, you're probably using the planes quite a lot. How do you personally deal with that dilemma?
Definitely, great question, and I expected nothing less from this audience. Critical questions. So yes, this is a dilemma and always the internal battle with which every activist feels, especially the ones from Indonesia and from the global south. Unfortunately, there is no train from Indonesia to Switzerland. Otherwise, I'd be the first one there. But also, I think what I've been able to build in the last 10 years of my change-making career is to be more selective in where I attend, and also recognizing that if I, for example, leave Bali, right? My trip out of the country was 3 weeks ago, where I started in Istanbul, then went to Paris, then by train to Amsterdam, and then by train here to Switzerland.
So you're trying to regroup.
So trying to regroup things and be more conscious of it. But of course, it is all about being more selective of where I can make the most impact. I think I could do a good enough energy on a Zoom or on a video pre-recorded, but there is a level where I want to be able to stand in front of you and share the message that I think is important in this room with you.
I'm going to be very honest with you with that question. I think it's quite telling that the people who are engaged and who are doing something, that they probably face more criticism that they do a little bit and maybe not the other thing than someone who wouldn't do anything at all. Do you feel that frustration sometimes that even if you do 80% good, people are kind of, looking for the 20% where they can get you in a way? Exactly.
Yeah, and it's frustrating because it's also so much energy going into the wrong things. In the world of change making, and when we think about sustainability, when we think about creating change, we should be empowering each other and learning from each other. This is where I believe that even companies on their journey of sustainability have to be way more brave to be transparent about not only the successes, but also the challenges. What didn't you get right? And what can other companies learn from that to move faster forward? And so I think, it's frustrating that people point out the bad things, but at the same time, all you can do when you face that criticism is be as authentic as possible and lead by example and say, hey, I recognize it, I could do better, but this is where I am at now. What do you suggest?
Let's speak specifics and concretely about what can be done. Another thing that's often said about, young climate activists and change makers as a whole is fantastic what they say and fantastic what they think, and they believe in the good thing. On the other hand, they say, we have to make people who are in charge, politically as well, accountable for what they do. Concretely, what does that mean? What do you expect from us all, but also from politicians and the economy?
This question is always a heavy one for young people because, to quote Mary Finn, in the film Bigger Than Us, which is a documentary feature film. Which was
about the movements and...
Yeah, I was 18, traveled around the world, met 6 different change makers. And to quote Mary, she says, none of us should be here. None of us young people should be skipping school or at the streets or making manifestos of how we would like to see the world run. So young people shouldn't have the answers only, or we shouldn't only look at young people, but we can provide that inspiration and also leading by example. So what do I think should be done? The first one is always to companies and to leaders, invite young people into the decision-making rooms. there are so many young people around the world. It doesn't have to be the ones that you hear about on the news, but who is active in your local communities? Invite them into the decision-making rooms. Then the second one, which is constantly always shared on stages by young people, is we have to stop all new fossil fuel industries. This is something that we just have to start understanding and investing into the alternatives that are already available. And last but not least, there's a new term. If you're not aware of it, I hope that I'm sharing something new. It's called ecocide. This is a law where, in a dramatic sense, you could go to jail for drastic destruction to the environment. This is a law that we need to push forward and have implemented in all countries. So those are 3 tangible to-do lists. I'll repeat them. Invite young people, end fossil fuel industries, and implement the ecocide law.
On the first point, inviting people into the room and onto the table, we speak a lot about female quotas in companies. Do you think there should be something like a youth quota as well?
Definitely, and that's also part of the program. We do believe that it should be a new norm to have young people consult the new marketing strategy, consult the new climate agenda, consult the product and the branding, the packaging, everything. Use a second pair of eyes from Gen Z.
Which brings me to the new venture that Youthtopia. You talked briefly about it. I think it started when you realized that there's so many young people around, all around the world, who kept saying to you and to your sister, "It's fantastic what you do. What can I do? How can I help?"
Yeah, I spoke to over 1 million students around the world, and I found myself spending more time in other students' classrooms than in my own classroom. I don't think my teachers were very happy about that, but I found myself in these classrooms, New York, Tokyo, or the Maluku Islands in Indonesia, and after sharing what we were able to achieve with Bye Bye Plastic Bags, kids were lining up, refusing to go back to class, and said, "How can I do what you do?" Again, that question. What are the tangible next steps for me as an individual to create change? So Youthtopia is the new company that I started in 2020. Just in time, right before the pandemic, we thought there's no better time than now.
And then the world stopped.
Oh, my goodness. And then we invested so much time and energy to build this network of young people around the world. Because hands up, and I'm covering my eyes so I can see you, hands up if you know Greta Thunberg. Ah, yes, the light, hello.
Well, okay. We see it without the light. I think everyone knows.
Okay, but hands up. It's an experiment. Hands up higher so I can see them in the audience. Keep your hands up if you know Mohammed Al-Junde. Keep your hands up if you know Memory Banda. Keep your hands up if you know Rafid Shidki.
We don't see a single hand.
This is my point. There are so many of us out there. And where can we learn from each other? Where can we connect for ourselves with no recordings, no press conferences, no standing ovations, but just be our own selves as change makers? That's what I needed as 12-year-old Melati, and I didn't have it. And now as 21-year-old Melati, I'm building for as many young people as possible. Youthtopia, hopefully, becomes the #1 go-to learning platform where young people can learn from change makers how to create change. So we have master classes, workshops, mentorship, all available. Programs over 150 created from concept to delivery by young people.
And how do you make sure all this gets to the older generations? As our motto, the theme is reaching out. It is crucial that we hear about the young people, but also that the young people are coming to us and that they tell us what they need. There might be some people who think, yeah, they're so hungry young people, they don't want to talk to us. How do you make sure that this kind of gap, maybe a generational gap, can be prevented in a way?
Yeah, this is really, it's an important one and a tricky one because there are a lot of frustrated activists, angry activists, and rightfully so, and we need them. But we also have a lot of young people who want to be connected but don't necessarily know where and how to get connected. So the reaching out aspect is essentially where Youthtopia takes on that responsibility and connects incredible young people within the network of Youthtopia to CEOs and companies like yours. Again, because that dialogue is important and reaching out is the first step.
Great question from the audience regarding that topic. What can us boomers, so there are boomers in the room, we know what can the other generations X, Y, whatever, learn from you? And also very interesting, what can you still learn from us?
Yes, a big part of the program is that reverse mentoring, and it goes both ways. Young people sharing their lessons from the front lines. We see the climate crisis. We grew up in a world where we turn on the news and we see melting icebergs, or the radio and we hear another typhoon in the Philippines. So we are living through this climate crisis. So we experience that urgency, feel that, tap into it, but recognize that young people are not held back by that anxiety or that overwhelm. Instead, we see a challenge and we think of it as an opportunity. We see a linear economy and we think, how can we make it circular? And this is all with the mindset to leave nobody behind. So I think this is something that I hope to see more of in the leadership, and vice versa. I think there's still a lot to learn. I haven't gone yet to university, I know. But my philosophy is that university isn't going anywhere. It'll be there when I'm ready. And besides, my university, tricky joke to put in this audience, but anyways, I do feel like I am constantly learning, but my professors are not maybe the traditional ones. I'm learning from other people my age. And I think that where I was going with that is that I still do believe that there's a lot to learn. Maybe one day I want to get into, the legal side of things, but also the business model and the strategy and marketing of how to get a product out there. So there are lots of different things that I think we can learn from each other.
When you're dealing with business people, with politicians, on the legal side as well, you will, and you already have been, I'm pretty sure, in touch with people who don't understand you, who are doing business as usual, maybe not always good business, also nasty business, maybe. You made a point that you say, I want to reach them all. Meaning you also talk to the bad guys, right?
Yeah, yes. I mean, 2 years ago, Melati would have 2-year-old me would have probably also been like, no way. There is not a chance that I will sit in the same rooms or engage or interact. And I realized that that's actually part of the problem, because as much as I was in these classrooms with other young people who were asking, okay, but where do I get started? I would find myself in boardrooms and hear the exact same question from CEOs. And nobody was wanting to sit in the same room with them to help them through their sustainability journey. So a couple of years ago, I kind of bootstrapped and said, this is the next step. If we want to create longer-term effective and scalable change, we need to work with all levels of society. And when we say that, we really mean all levels of society. So yes, now our time, or my time and the organization is definitely spread through students in the classroom all the way through to business leaders and corporates.
When we kind of wrap this up with actual topics and topics of the moment, where we talk a lot about energy security in general, the war, of course. I know some people in the climate movement are almost desperate because they think we have been talking about climate change for so long. And finally, people were listening, and now all these other topics and problems show up.
Yeah.
I mean, the latest IPCC report wasn't really covered that much as it should have been. How frustrating is that? And do you understand that maybe sometimes more urgent topics are taking up our time?
Well, I think this is a very interesting question, because perhaps the IPCC report, for those of you that don't know it, please Google it tonight. IPCC report did cover a whole extensive report of what is going to happen in the next few years if we don't take action. It shares that within the next 50 years, half of the world's population will become climate refugees. And this is a fact. A child born today, by the time they're 30 years old, the climate crisis will be the only reality that exists. So it's not that the IPCC report didn't cover as much as it should have. It's the fact that we are in an information and communication crisis. The media dictates too much of what we are watching or seeing or reading, and it can also feel very overwhelming. There's a term called eco-anxiety, where young people today, 70% of Gen Z, experience this extreme overwhelm that, yes, we are connected, we have our phones, we have the latest viral TikTok about what's going to happen to India or to Indonesia. And there's that overwhelm, that feeling of being stuck. So I think, yes, there's so much going on in the world in the time that we're living in today, but it's also, I think the next step is for us to understand the intersectionality of all of them. The climate crisis isn't only more rain or hot weather or snow or no snow. It is whether we can grow food or not. It is whether we will have a shelter in front of, above our heads or not. It is a lot more, and that intersectionality, I feel, is the next step of the narrative we have to now share more of.
Yet we still have huge differences between countries, continents. Indonesia still being your home, we have a question about Indonesia. How do you believe that a developing country as Indonesia will prosper in the near future without fossil fuels? Going, of course, in the direction of we're not all at the same level. How do we level that problem?
Yeah, recognized and understood, but I also see again I see it as an opportunity. I do believe that Indonesia, one, as a young democracy, secondly, with more than half of the population of the country below the age of 30, we are full of innovation and full of motivation to make the world a better place while we still can. And so I think that we're already seeing it. Grassroots efforts in Indonesia are leading the way when it comes to implementing renewable energies or even changing policy. So I'm always very hopeful and optimistic because I don't think there's another choice.
1 minute, yes, please. One minute left for us too, and 1 minute left for you to make us change the way we do things sometimes. There are many politicians in this room, I would say, or a few. One of them being a former chancellor of Austria, who's going to come next, who's still a young man as well. But if you had one message for us as parents, as the younger generation, all wrapped into one sentence, a wish, what would it be?
Wow, this is woo. Okay, 32 seconds. What would that one wish be? I feel like it's not a sentence, I'm sorry, I'm really not good at sentences, but
sure, you can have two.
The message. When you get up off of your seat later and you exit the doors, take a deep breath in and out, start a conversation with a young person in your family, your next door neighbor, find that inspiration that you need, and then remember that if young people today can do it, so can you. Be brave enough to take that first step.
Melati Wijsen, thank you so much, Melati. Fantastic. I'll see you around. Thank you so much.